Hello friends and welcome to the tutorial. Today we are going to be drawing a cartoon style wolf using the Picasso Tab and Sketchbook Pro. Let's begin. I have a new layer set up and I've picked the pencil and a dark blue colour to start sketching. To begin the wolf, I sketched a rough circle. This will form the base of the head and provide a working guideline for the rest of the lines. Starting at the base of the circle, I drew a line coming up, and then I drew another tiny straight line on the other side of the circle. I then continued the same line, but drawing it down and up at the end. This line should swoop up in a curve. From the end of that curved line, I drew in the snout, and then joined those lines to the first line that I drew. Going back to the base of the top headline, I then added in the long and pointy ear. I then used the transform tool to move the head down a bit. You can use this tool to move your sketch around and resize if you end up running out of space in your own drawing. To draw in the rest of the body, I started at the bottom line of the head and continued that line down, slanting the line slightly inwards as I went. I then drew in the back of the wolf, starting the line up by the ear and bringing it down in a curve to the edge of the artwork. From there, I then moved on to draw in the back of the front leg and the belly line. I drew in another line to form the back leg, the one that he's sitting on. I also then drew in another line to make the second leg coming out behind the line for the front leg. I then drew in a large tail at the back of the sketch using curvy lines. With the main outline then completed, I moved on to adding in all the details. I started by cleaning up the sketch a bit and erased the circle guideline from the head, and then drew in a simple line to indicate a closed eye. I then went along the back of the wolf and drew in tufts of fur. I did this all around the outline of the wolf and also added in a few tufts into the back leg section as well. And that completes the wolf sketch. I then added in a background. I created a new layer and then began by drawing in a moon behind his head and then a line of mountains below. In front of the mountains, I then sketched in a line of trees to create a forest. That completed my sketch. To outline, I began by turning the opacity down on both the sketch layers, and then I locked both of those layers. I created a new layer for both the lines for the background and the lines for the wolf. I picked a dark brown colour and the fountain pen. I then simply traced the entire sketch. I also had the predictive stroke tool turned on, as it helped to smooth out all of the lines. The fountain pen also has pressure sensitivity, so as I drew, the lines had a little variation to them. Now it's time to add in the colour. To set up, I duplicated both the outline layers and then locked down the top version of each layer. Working in the bottom of those layers, I simply filled in the drawing using the paint bucket tool. The wolf I coloured grey before moving onto the background layer where I used brown for the landscape and a variety of greens for the forest. In areas that the paint bucket doesn't work, for example if your lines don't enclose a shape, then I swapped over to the fountain pen and coloured in the section that way. I then added in a cream circle for the moon and a black rectangle to fill in the rest of the background. And, as always, I added these on a new layer. After the main areas were all coloured in, I added in some simple highlights and shadows, again on a new layer. I picked a light grey and went around the wolf adding in highlights, especially to the tail, the tufts of fur and the front of the legs. I then picked a darker grey to add in shadow lines. Usually I place these shadow lines on the opposite side or below the highlights. I also added in highlights and shadows into the overlapping trees and a highlights line into the top of the mountain range as well. I then added in dots or stars into the night sky, some white highlights into the moon, And then the final step was to draw a white outline all around the wolf. Keeping everything on different layers, and especially keeping the wolf separate from the background layer, makes drawing this white line much easier. With that, the wolf was complete and ready to howl at the moon. I hope you enjoyed drawing the wolf today. Thank you for watching.